we're dropping the ball on voting. We need to vote. So that's something that we're going to talk about. What's going on? What's the problems? What are we going to lose if we don't vote? What are we going to gain if we do vote? And it's lazy. So get out and vote. We're going to discuss that on Free Speech Northwest. Free Speech Northwest is brought to you by Adams Ribs Smokehouse, located at 1210 State Street, Salem, Oregon 97301. Hey, it's Casey Ocupe with Free Speech Northwest, and we have some amazing guests with us here today. We have Ronnie Daniels, we have Kevin Conzo with GGWG Oregon, Good Guys with Guns, and then we also have Cynthia Lester, which you manage
Abolish Oregon Measure 11.
Abolish Oregon Measure 11.
Repeal, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Abolish and repeal Oregon Measure 11. Okay. Well, right now, today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Ronnie about some voting issues, because you've got some things that you have to say in regards to voting, right?
Right now, since 2015, I've been involved privately as a citizen. I was a flagger. I also do team ropings and all the good stuff. I'm somewhat of a black redneck, as I portray myself, but nevertheless, I'm an American that's starting to see our deterioration of the self-worthiness of a lot of our teenagers and some of the adults that has lost the hope and just prefer to be like Calvin, just go along, get along. And in the process, we are a republic. We are a republic that our founding fathers gave us. Our rights are endowed by our creator of your belief, whether if you're a Muslim, whether if you're an atheist, or even a Christian, or a Jew, or a Hindu, or anything else. Your rights there's a golden rule for each of those. And in the process, we are abandoning what our founding fathers said is our civic duties. The civic duties, in order to keep our liberties, is to keep an watchful eye of the servants that's supposed to work for us. That is our senators, our congressmen, our representatives of our state and national, our mayors, our county commissioners, even down to the various utility people that works for the city projects that supplies our water, our electric, and other utility and sewage. And we've become basically a society that has just given up hope, because if you don't go along a certain line, then you're considered an outcast, whether I agree or disagree with the subject. And in the process, you want to make change, you got to put skin in the game. There's rewards and consequences when you do these things. If you choose not, and you like the Senate Bill 719, Senate Bill 941, of the Oregon's gun bills, my friend here knows about. I spoke, and I took the time off, $200 off a day. Gave up a prevailing wage job, flagging in Southern Oregon, to speak on the issue that they infringing on my liberties and rights as an individual. They're going to make a decision, and then they're going to tell you, okay, on Senate Bill 719, oh, let's say example, your neighbor or your friend or your relative says, oh, Ron's a threat. He might have had a couple cocktails and he has guns, and I'm worried about his safety. All of a sudden, you get a knock on the door by Polk County Sheriff, and I'm glad to say I do have a constitutionally-minded sheriff, Mr. Gardner. Okay, and in the situation, you do not have due process. They'll tell you got 24 hours to turn your firearms over to a gun shop, law enforcement, or to a third-party relative. And if you don't, you shall be fined with $6,250 and 1 year in prison or jail for not doing it. On a hearsay.
Yeah.
The burden of proof, as our founding fathers in the Fifth Amendment have said, the Fourth Amendment right, illegal search and seizure. What is your cause? The first thing they say, what is the probable cause before I can give a search warrant? No, you don't get that right, because you've been alleged by some relative, ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, whatever the heck else, that you're a threat.
So someone who wants to get you, somebody could just have begrudging feelings towards you, and then you're guilty until proven innocent.
Wasn't there a movie like 20 years ago that came out talking about the future and how they could see your thoughts and how people were getting convicted for thinking?
Oh, that's Minority Report. Minority Report.
And if you want to go, a bad horror movie.
And if you really want to get down through, you want to say, what's that movie with Will Smith and Gene Hackman, where they're using cameras and everything, surveil like China's doing right now? China's got burnt.
Enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state,
Yeah.
yes. Enemy of the state. We're getting ready to be in that time period because we have driven basically disparage our voters to a point where in our state, Portland dictates everything. My vote don't count. My representative don't hear me. Well, whose fault is it if your representative don't hear you? It is upon you if your representative don't hear you. It is upon you your school board is not putting through things that you may despise, like having a boy going in a girl's bathroom in Dallas School District. There's a big suit, and people in the community stood up. But the thing is that voting, 19% in this primary is a good example. 90% of the Republican Party voted in the primary, less than a little over 103,000 of all the Republicans and they're not even out of 2.5 million people.
That's weak?
That is weak as hell.
And why? Why do you think that's happening?
Why is that happening? It's because the complacency of my vote don't count. East of the Cascades, Southern Oregon, and the coast, and even here in the valley, my word is not listened to because it's going to be drowned out by Portland. Let's go through and let's take that situation in hand. Portland voters since 2012, where they had the highest record number of voters turnout at any general or other elections for an initiative, has dropped and dropping. But the mindset is, as that drops, the mindset of those, let's use 2016 election against Kay Brown, when we had Bud Pierce running for governor. She got 59% and he got 43% in that situation. And in the situation on that, 32% east of the Cascades only participated in the Republican Party. 38% in Southern Oregon, south of Douglas County, south. We're barely hitting 48%. Polk County represents 53%, 54%.
So we could have closed the gap.
You could have closed the gap. And also, if your ideology, if you plead your case, there's blue dog Democrats, independents that might have came along. So you might have picked up an extra 7 to 12% of those votes with them because they see a wave. There's a lot of people that's sitting in the shadows that choose not to vote because I'm not concerned. It ain't affected me
Because it hasn't
yet.
happened to them,
And this is the same thing. Be careful what we wish for. Because in Germany, 1926 election, when they got Adolf Hitler, 46% of the population voted that year. Okay, 46% of their population. And in this situation, it's like I said, in the primary, less than 31% voted. When Polk County at 28% was considered the top 5 or 6 counties in the state of Oregon that participatively voted, that's shameful. It's appalling. We call ourselves Oregonians, and then our state, then our country, and first. And yet we choose not to go through. But we're the first one to go complain, bitch, and whine. Oh, that can't go through. Why is my taxes going up? How come they're talking about?
Because you didn't vote.
Did you make a chance to go to public hearings? Did you go through and send an email? Did you call? Did you even make an attempt to address the issues with your representatives or talk to your people in the community that maybe have advocacy for those? Did you make any attempt? Did you put any skin in the game, monetarily, physically, or whatever? I've done those things for 2.5 years before I went back to work. After my stepbrother died, in a few days, on the 30th, it'd be, at 5 o'clock, it would be 3 years since my stepbrother died. Let me tell you something. The threat we're worried about right now is the drugs. That's minor. What leads to drugs is the complacency of the people that's not taking a stand up against it. And if you don't go through and keep voting or sitting by this fire line and saying, well, there's somebody going to take up this cause. There's going to be NRA, there's going to be OFF, there's going to be People for the American Way, or various other social groups, NAACP, whatever the heck else, going to stand up for the agenda. It will never happen.
No, there's a bunch of finger pointing.
Yeah, basically, if all of the people who say, this isn't going to affect me or my vote doesn't count, and then you add all of those people up over and over and over, you get thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people whose votes did count. They just counted in the opposite direction.
That's right. They counted against the will that they wanted going forward. Instead of having forward traction, we become complacent, become prideful, and become displaced.
You think this is because they don't teach really civics in school anymore?
I think that there's not a lot of high standards in Oregon when it comes to a lot of the things you're talking about when it comes to teaching in schools, history, teaching
Political education.
and when there is some political education, I think that a lot of teachers really share their
ideology
a little bit more than they should be.
But
you know,
go back to the late 70s, early 80s when when we start talking about the New World, how the United States came about, that was started in 3rd grade. You came across, they talked about the classic periods because we used to integrate art. We used to integrate science. We used to integrate math and geography in our classes at 3rd and 4th grade.
Yeah.
And as they got older, in my time, you had discussions. You had 5 minutes where current event news or what's the newest article going on in your city, county, or country, and you debated. The teacher never, he might give his suggestion, this is why maybe this happened, but he would give you the respect to have dialogue. And today, you cannot wear a shirt with an American flag in the classroom. You can't wear a shirt.
It's offensive.
I want to, like the one kid up there in Portland area, wore a shirt says, let's help build a wall, and shows Trump or shows the wall being built.
He was
And
suspended,
he was suspended,
right?
Expelled from school.
But you don't have the right to your opinion, and that's exactly what he was showing.
That's not okay.
But
No.
at the same time, they want to use our children like the David Hoggs of the world, CNN wannabe ratfink.
When it comes to them, we want to listen to their voice, but when it comes to, another perspective, like wearing a shirt with a flag or something along those lines, those kids get to be suspended. So that's pretty ironic.
I spoke to a student in Springfield in middle school, and he was pulled aside by his guidance counselor and asked why is he supporting an organization that's for killing kids or against what we're marching for today. They were doing a memorial march for Columbine, and he had an NRA shirt on, and this was a school counselor. And they're pushing a lot of ideologies instead of, like he was just saying, current events. I remember current events. It was like maybe one period a week where we read a news article. They're pushing it daily to our children and making them walk out the door and handing them a sign on the way out.
But they got fake news now, too.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of fake
We
news.
didn't really have that.
They do now.
Let's go back to the 70s and 80s. Yes, Walter Cronkite, we had Dan
Oh,
Rather,
yeah.
we had Howard K. Smith, Harry Reasoner.
They gave you the facts.
They gave
Yeah,
us
they did.
facts. They kept their
Not feelings.
personalities to the side. They did good journalism. They listened to the people. Your local news used to listen to what you say instead of turning it around to fit an agenda
Yeah.
that would
Oh, yeah.
bring high numbers.
We have people crying on the air now. You know what I mean?
Tissue. Charlie, stop teasing.
You're
If you're going to
offended.
read the facts, I don't think you really always need. I mean, there are some instances, sure, but if it doesn't fit your political ideology and you're reading facts, I don't think you really need to cry about it.
No, they had the opt-out at the end of the program or whatever, where they would share their opinion. And if you watch the news report, it might be just a little bit like they might have emphasized some words over others, but it was more fact-based.
Yeah.
Now you have
They cut out stuff.
I was thinking of
lot.
Rachel Maddow.
right.
Or they don't want to
crying
hear both
on
sides
air,
of
you
the
know.
story. Yeah.
You know,
And
Don Lemon.
she's-
I mean, if
Oh,
you,
yeah.
all of a sudden, now let's say example, the cat ran up the street. If it was a lady saying it, they said, well, she might have been feeling okay. If I said it, well, he might be thinking of a racial overtone that he might be related to black people being accosted by cops.
Oh,
Then
dear.
if you say it, all of a sudden, oh, you're a goddamn racist. How
Yeah,
dare you,
yeah,
Ku Klux
yeah.
Klan. All this other crap. But you see how they put the juxtaposition on the subject of the cat
They're
ran up the street.
creating hate.
Yes.
through the
Trying to
news
interpret
and
Divide
divide
things.
us. Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
because those that's in power, those the Soros of the world, the Bloombergs of the world, even the Bill Gates that wants to control your mindset to a direction that they want you to be, but they're gonna make you feel that you're part of it. But in reality, they're taking away and slowly feeding you that slow arsenic form of medication that's going to kill
Yeah.
your soul and contempt to be involved in the system that we have as a republic. And that's what has happened slowly but surely in the last 20 years, when in my state for the last 32 years you had Democrats basically running this state on ideology that I'm looking out for the working man, this and that. But yet, under Kulongoski and under this governor, when there was a tax cut given by the federal, they won't pass it down to a single folks that is paying into the system, or the families that need it, or the small businesses. Because, oh, your money, or a small businessman, or you're a single person, or a married folk, that's not your money. That is money to help the state. Who is the state? We are the state. We are the people. We are the ones, we are their bosses. We have chosen and we accept responsibility after the election to get respect, but they're supposed to have equal representation of all of the districts, the cities, the county, and the state, and that's not happening. What we got now happening is an ideology that we're going to push on everybody. We're going to start with your children.
By a minority, by a small group in Portland, and I'm going to call Portland a small group.
Yeah.
Okay. They are deciding what is going on for the majority of the state because of what you started this talk off on. Because, did you say 30% of the registered voters vote?
In Polk County, that was the highest we got, 28.6%.
I'm almost at the point where I want to rock the. Okay, I'm a little conservative. All right, my wife is a little bit more liberal thinking. She was a registered Democrat in the primary. I'm a Republican. That said, I want to rock the vote. I don't care what side you're voting on. Get off your duff and mail in the ballot. It's so easy here. Massachusetts, you got to wait in line for 2 hours to go to a polling station, and here you get a little ballot in the mail.
3 weeks ahead of time. Yeah. 3 weeks.
There's no excuse for your civic duty.
24-hour drop-off boxes all over the place.
And you can drop them off. You can go to the local store, and they got a drop box for you.
Roth's had them till like 8 or 10 p.m.
Because we need to become more active as the citizens who are really in control of the state, who are really in control of things, not these people that are up the top in Capitol Hill with a big gold thing on top of their building thinking they rule the roost. They don't. We rule the roost, which is why I'm so adamant on my gun rights, because...
But the thing is this, there's like, in the last 50 years, well, 60 years, go back to Kennedy's time, when you're taking away the foundations what made this country great. What make this country great, and I wear this hat, it's not an ideology of one man. It was the foundations that was set for by the people that had bled, that gave treasure, and died for, whether they're black, white, Jew, or Gentile, for this country. Even in the Civil War, you had blacks that fought for the South that owned slaves, but they wanted individual state liberties. Whether I agree with it or not, they fought. There was 5 regiments out of Texas, Louisiana, that supplied gunpowder and everything to 80% of the South. But they don't want to talk about that in history because it's not fit the NAACP agenda. The problem is this: if I can keep dividing you by, all of a sudden we take away the right to have freely practice religion on the Johnson Amendment, if I can go through and say, well, we got on the Title IX, on equal employment in sports and everything, I want you to make sure women get in everything, bam. If now, Supreme Court decision came down, marriage between 2 guys or 2 girls, what's it called? And I have to respect it. Cakes like Melissa, thank God the other decision so far somewhat, whether we agree or disagree, it's an individual choice and an individual right that we should respect and be changing. But yet, we are complacent because, it ain't gonna affect me. What does it matter?
What affects one should affect all.
Yes.
If something is hurting somebody else, we should all stand up and defend that person.
Yes, we do.
So we're dropping the ball. I think that's the main point
The main thing,
here.
we are dropping the ball. We have become complacent. We have become prideful. We have become stiff-necked. We have become, well, I don't care. As long as Roseanne's on TV or CNN is telling me what I do at airports, that's all I give a damn about. That's what we become.
Ignorant.
Ignorant of choice. Blinded because of complacency. And that, go on top of that, if they keep hearing the lies. Sal Alinsky. If you listen to Sal Alinsky lights of today, whether it's Obama, who I didn't vote for, and I told everybody when he spoke to the San Francisco Commonwealth Club in 2007, if you want your health care, you can get your health care.
Yeah.
But when he went through in San Francisco Commonwealth Club, which is a nice established area on the market area, beautiful city. The point is, what he made is, well, if you want coal, You can have co-players, but you will pay a lot for it. Mm-hmm. Now, what has happened when he got elected? You had a supermajority of 61 senators, 280-something in the House. He had supermajorities in the House and the Senate. First black president. Everybody cheer, hey, we got a black president. He got a Nobel Peace Prize before he got out of office. Okay? Now let's fast forward. We have the cheapest power, Northwest dams. We got 5 dams from Snake River in Idaho all the way back to Bonneville. Mm-hmm. We're letting the seals eat all the salmon, of course. But nevertheless, our power rates has gone up 2.5 times since 2009. Yes. Now they're bringing these new smart meters that they already got smart meters. They started in Albany Pacific Power. They're using the same meter. Now they're going to re-rate you because of the mandates, and people don't hear that. They get sound. The news media don't put it as the main agenda that was talked about legislatively. The only reason I know about it is because I stay informed. Knowledge is power. If you choose to not pay attention how the water conditions is every day in that river, but yet you're going to drink it, how do I know you ain't got no spores in Salem, in the water system here? How do you know if you don't have cryptosporidium, or you got bacteria, or you got various other, what's the one that gives you the runs, but nevertheless.
I don't know. But I'll tell you, the spore water we have here in Salem is delicious.
Are we drinking it?
I don't know.
Not me.
Probably.
I don't want to know. Just don't tell me.
No. Okay. Well, so people need to research. They need to look at their sources, and they need to see both sides.
And here's one thing else. I spoke about this in 2017 at the March 25th rally in the Capitol. People's afraid to stand for what they believe in because they don't want to be put into the box by Antifa. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, people. I am just a person who makes less than $25,000 a year. I served my country for 4 years, but yet I am willing to put my heart, my soul, and my actions. You may not have time to speak, but at the same time, support us with letters. Blow up those emails. Oregon got the easiest system to talk to your representation.
And you'll be their voice.
And you will be their voice.
Yeah.
Or come out when we have a rally, bring your bodies out there. Or when there's a public hearing, bring your bodies out there. I'm tired of the Bloomberg sending mom demands a ceasefire Oregon by Penny Okamoto, who's inside the Multnomah County Justice Department under Rob Underhill. And yet, they flood us because they get the word out and they bring people from out of state and they say they represent you. When are we going to stop saying let them take over our state and our country?
I can
by
think
these
for
lies?
myself.
I keep inviting Ceasefire Oregon onto the
Penny
show.
Okamoto, just tell her.
Yeah.
She won't come because you will not fit her agenda.
No, I invite her, I invite all of these people onto the show so that we can just have a civil discussion.
It's too divided. And
they won't
I don't know,
come on
did you
the
see
show.
the message that she sent out just
how did it go?
recently?
Might not have saw it.
She's basically saying the NRA has never smelt the blood of children, and
They're
I
putting
don't know.
dogmatic propaganda out.
Did you read that?
Yeah, I read
That's
that.
odd. I don't think that the NRA wants children to die.
No.
No, but at the same time, I got a godson that's going to be 8. That just turned 18 down in a state in the south there, I think Texas. Okay? It's not fair to him, Oklahoma. It's not fair to him to go through after Parkland and say, you're old enough to vote, but you're too young to own a firearm. How in the hell can
How old is he?
He's 18.
Yeah.
It ain't happening in Oklahoma. Thank God they're pretty conservative.
Well,
But
can't
the
they own a
mentality,
rifle of some
Florida
sort?
is a good example.
I think they
thought
can
you
own a
could in Oregon.
shotgun. But,
You know, I speaking
18.
of that,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a daughter who's 19, right? She wants to live on her own all the time.
Yeah.
And if she wants to live on her own and she has to wait till she's 21 to buy a gun, doesn't that put that young lady
At risk.
at risk?
It does put it at risk. Let's go back to our founding fathers. Let's go back to 1775 again.
Let's go.
Let's go on back.
Time
A
travel.
lot of the women, surprisingly, might have carried a little single barrel
Oh, yeah.
flintlocks. Okay?
Yeah.
A lot of the teen, that was 14 and 15 years old. The rites of passage in that culture of that time period was 14. I mean, if you look at the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson, I mean, look at the young kids that did served. And even in World War I, the doughboys that went over and helped France again. And in World War II, some of our youngest and the brightest officers that ever came about through the Eisenhower and everybody else. Some of the people that served underneath them was 14, 15, 16 years old. Chief of Naval Operation Border. He started out at 16 years old. He lied and got in. Wow. In Korea, and wound up being my Chief of Naval Operations as I got out in 1990. It's that sacrifice, the love, and the care of our country. For us to go through is to spit on their blood. The Malarkeys, the Donald Malarkeys, the original Banner brother who's been gone for almost 6 months now. And he was a good friend of mine, one of the first people I met 25 years ago. He told me stories that in Birch Garden and in Belgium and other stuff, and the Battle of the Bulge. And he was your youngest county commissioner nobody don't know about at 26 years old in Clatsop County, right there in Astoria. And Astoria going forward. His brother died from repercussions of mustard gas in the Martian line in World War I at 36 years old. They don't teach that history to our kids, but it's up to us to stand up for by voting, by participating in our local communities, and just not saying, well, it's no excuse, there's nothing I can do. People, you want to keep walking down the ovens of Auschwitz? This is what you're asking for. If you want to go through it and become like what happened to Chile under Pinochet, this is what you're asking for. You want to go through and be like Franco in Spain till he passed away in the late 70s. That's what you're asking for. You want to go keep walking down the line like Australia's, and all of a sudden these little thin lines down the cuts where we're gonna certain guns. You gotta be part of a gun club, this and that, and all of a sudden, what's killing people in Australia more than a gun? They only had 160, less than 8 people was killed with a gun, but there was 4,000 people killed by barbecued with a fire, being beaten, bludgeoned with a club, or chopped up to death with an axe.
Oh,
imagine if they had guns.
Multiply that incidence time to the United States population, it would make our crime rate look small.
Well, I had a friend that wouldn't let me bring my gun in his house. Mm-hmm. And then a few months later, there was a home invasion done on him, and he got hurt quite badly. And then when he got out of the hospital, he called me, asked if I was going to come visit again. I go, well, are you going to let me bring my gun in now? Yes. A little late, you're already hospitalized. He was in his 80s, he didn't have...
Yeah, but my foster mom, she's 97 years old in Rialto, California. She got a 38 in her purse, and she got my father's double lace leather blackjack.
I have a 9mm.
Lead in, and she had used it 8 years ago on the kids that was trying to rob her.
Yeah.
But overall, we have to get your state and your city, your county, or even your local community, where you're from, maybe voting on just small things in your clubs or anything else. If your participation, people, is just go ahead and sit in the lines and think everybody else will carry the water for you, how much more water do you think, how long will it be for that water to be drowning you to the point where you have to try to get your head up and all of a sudden you try to give life of support, which would be people that's going to support your liberties, but yet you, in your whininess and your discernment, has basically caused those people to move away from our beautiful state, to basically stay in the shadows and let everything fall apart while you want complacencies of bread from manna. Let me give you an example, people. There ain't no manna except the manna that you go through and you grow and have to work and churn. There is no more free lunch. Our founding fathers, our grandparents of World War II gave us, and Vietnam and Korea gave us one last chance to be economically, socially accountable and independent. You cannot get the greatest inventions that we ever had in world's history in the last 70 years this country has produced. In the last 40 years, we've gone from using a big giant walls full of computers to where I can use my little iFlip.
Well, our history is actually being offensive to people, so they're erasing it right now.
Erasing our history.
Yeah.
But
so how are we going to teach it to them if they keep being offended by it?
But you know what's the hypocritical part when you talk about the race and the statues? It was the Southern Democrats and the Southern armies, and even some of the Southerners in New York, up in the Tammany Hall Democrats, that said we should keep these statues as memory of those who served, because they were all countrymen that came from Annapolis, that came from West Point, and other top
But they're
military schools.
erasing it, so your
have to wrap
children
up.
aren't going to know.
Okay.
We've ran out of time.
Oh, Jesus.
So I hope that you get the point.
Vote.
You need to get out there and vote. It's your job. It's my job. It's his job. His
damn
job. Her
job.
job. It's all of our jobs. Don't be lazy. Don't be just sitting at home. Maybe you have questions. I don't know. Hey, contact me. Contact anyone.
Contact me. I'm on Facebook, Ronnie Daniels, Sheridan, Oregon. If you got a problem with it, come on up.
There you
Let
go.
me tell you something else. Make sure. I mean, you don't have to like what I do. I'm a black redneck. I like team roping. I like fishing. I carry guns. I own an AR-15. But you know something? I love you like the Lord loved me. Love everybody like He loves us. To go through and say an ideology and not be respectful, and then go through and be hating, then you shall reap what you sow. That's all I have to say.
There we go. We're going to close it out. Free Speech Northwest is brought to you by Adams Ribs Smokehouse, located at 1210 State Street, Salem, Oregon 97301.